Even in this era of reboots and spin-offs, Xena Warrior Princess still stands out as one of the rare TV spin-offs that went on to outshine its source material. Xena originally appeared on an episode of Hercules, The Legendary Journeys, but her series almost immediately enjoyed better ratings, a longer run, and constant syndication. Sorry, Kevin Sorbo.
Disappointed!
For a time, it was even the most watched show internationally, knocking freaking Baywatch down to second place. And you gotta be good to knock Baywatch to second place. In her debut Hercules episode, Xena was a mercenary with her own army who was moved by Hercules' desire to honor his murdered family by fighting for good. When she failed to kill a child while ransacking a village, her army turned against her for her compassion. She began to see the error of her ways, and her own series centered around her quest for redemption. This is the type of adventure-based story female protagonists rarely get in fiction, and it was a massive hit. Xena was co-created by John Schulian and Robert Tappert. When they wanted to create a spin-off of Hercules, it was Tappert that considered Xena to be the best choice, as she was hugely popular and stood out among the other supporting characters. Xena became a phenomenon for many reasons. The lead was unquestionably feminist, subtextually queer, and very nearly every episode passed the Bechdel test with flying colors. Hercules, The Legendary Journey was no ratings slouch and had its own thriving fandom, but Xena was a little more unique. Not only was Xena an original character, she was a villain on a quest for atonement. In contrast to Hercules' intrinsic morality, Xena struggled with the choices she made. Her character was more complex and sometimes difficult to understand or relate to. This made for top-notch storytelling as she made serious attempts to redeem herself after years of hurting others. Her arch-nemesis, Callisto, was equally fascinating, as her family had been destroyed by Xena. The fact that Callisto, the villain, was justified in her own quest for revenge against Xena was compelling and gave us some of Xena's best moments of character growth.
Hurts, doesn't it? Losing your family.
A female-led show that flips the hero-villain norms on their head. I mean, it's really not bad for the 90s, guys. Xena Warrior Princess thankfully stayed away from making Xena match stereotypically feminine ideals. Lawless's portrayal was stoic, more in the tradition of classic samurai films than Red Sonja. Episodes heavily featured her weaponry, her intelligence, and her fight scenes. Xena had several weapons, including her magical chakram, but also more typical items like a sword and a whip. You know, like a whip that everybody has. That chakram though, come on now. I mean, can you ever forget the scene where she saved like 6 people in a town with one throw of it?
How'd you like to spend eternity in 5 pieces?
You can't have Xena without Gabrielle, of course. The young, naive bard immediately idolized Xena and saw her as a ticket out of her boring life. I mean, she was right about that, to say the least. While Xena's central conflict was polarized between extremes of good and evil, Gabrielle's character development was significantly more nuanced. Lucy Lawless performed many of her own stunts on the series, injuring herself multiple times during filming. Once, while she was rehearsing for an appearance on Jay Leno, she was thrown from her horse and broke her hip, which led to some pretty creative body swap storylines along the way. Both she and actor Renee O'Connor, who played Gabrielle, trained considerably for their roles. Following in Xena's footsteps, Gabrielle became more physical as the series progressed, going from a long skirt and scroll to a crop top and staff. The fight scenes in Xena are outrageous, awesome, and pure 90s camp. But they're framed in a way that remains incredibly rare for female-led TV shows to this very day. Xena was one of the first genre shows that pulled in queer fans en masse. Although the portrayal may not hold up in light of today's better representation, for many, Xena was the first queer woman they saw on television. Fans noticed quickly that Gabrielle's fixation and loyalty to Xena fell a bit outside of a platonic relationship.
You're probably right.
Producers mostly avoided explicitly stating things one way or the other to avoid the chance of censorship back then. There was a great deal of fear around blacklisting issues for even implying that a character was queer during the late 90s. In the episode of Ellen in which she came out, the Puppy episode that aired in 1997 alongside Xena, and shortly after it aired, Ellen's show was canceled. But in the final episode, while Xena is dying, her relationship with Gabrielle is finally portrayed as having been romantic. Which, I mean, we all knew that, but it was still very emotional.
I love you, Xena. How am I supposed to go on without you? I'll always be with you, Gabrielle.
Later, Lucy Lawless would even say she felt that they were meant to be viewed as a married couple. Although it's definitely frustrating to not see the relationship confirmed until the last episode, Xena did lay the groundwork for other shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer to introduce more openly queer characters, starting us on the path to the better representation that we have today. Not only were there out people working on the show behind the camera, the subtext was usually clear enough to just be text. Although both Xena and Gabrielle had affairs with men throughout the series, their loyalty was clearly and unquestionably to each other. During the time period in which it originally aired, even a veiled relationship between two women was groundbreaking. You may have to put your 90s brain on, and we'll give you a moment for that. But Xena fandom popularized the term altfic, which is a form of fanfiction focused around relationships between queer women. Xena helped bring in a trend of queer writers becoming heavily involved in fanfiction during the late 90s and early 2000s, many of those fans turning into writers and artists themselves. Basically, Xena is a huge factor in the rise in fandom and nerd culture for women and LGBTQ people alike. Xena Warrior Princess was the rare occasion where a female character was able to do the simple thing of traveling alone or with another woman. Who didn't love when she would face off directly with misogynistic men who were hopelessly outmatched?
Didn't your mother ever teach you it's rude to stare?
Her failings truly came back to haunt her more than once, and being forced to deal with her mistakes head-on made her unique even among genre heroes. Yeah, okay, it had tons of 90s camp. It had tons of plot holes when you rewatch it, and some of the history in it is, we'll say, way off. But who really remembers that when you think back on the show? Xena was the character we needed to move the needle closer to where it should be. Oh, and who we needed to show us how to truly feel like a girl. Damn, that chakram form. It's very good. What did Xena mean to you? Hit us up in the comments below or share your favorite memories from the show. And make sure to subscribe if you dig what you're watching. And you do.